I'll just start. Makeup here.
Makeup.
and and Chad Ferrin, welcome to Monster Films.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, your latest two films, Easter Bunny Kill Kill and Someone's Knocking at the Door, are not the complete picture. We need to go back to 2000 to get the genesis of Chad Ferrin. Let's talk about your first movie, Unspeakable, and your rocky relationship with Troma Films.
Sure. Well, Unspeakable was basically born out of hate. And I was living in this Hollywood Hills house with this wannabe producer who turned out to be an extra and couldn't produce a fart. And I met Timothy Muscatel there, and we basically started talking, and we just got kind of fed up with this guy and the bullshit of Hollywood and said, hey, why don't we just go make our own movie? And so I saw Ferrin and went and wrote the script and just filled it with all the vitriol and hate that was inside me, and Unspeakable was born, and we shot it for 20 grand on Super 16, and finished the film, and then no one wanted to pick it up, and got a call that Troma loved it and said, hey, why not give them a shot? I mean, all the bad shit that I hear about them, it can't all be true. They'll pay. And of course, all that bad shit was true, and I've yet to see a dime out of them, and
Wow.
Unspeakable is born.
I mean, the great thing about that film is that it's like the other great Troma pickups, like Combat Shock, which are so unlike Troma. I can only imagine what a Toxic Avenger fan would make if he picks up Unspeakable, and is waiting for that cute, goofy, sort of Troma-esque quality, and all they get is scat scat snuff.
Scat Snuff, I like that title. That's good. Could be the sequel.
But before Unspeakable, you were a production assistant on a number of, Fango-friendly horror films, like the Hellraiser sequels.
Sure.
and the Halloween sequel. What kind of experience was it working on a cliche horror film?
Well, it was actually kind of a dream come true, really. I mean, the first Halloween is really probably one of the greatest horror films ever made, and it was, the opportunity to work on one of the many sequels was, as crappy as the sequel is, it was still a Halloween sequel. So it was really, for a 22-year-old kid from Minnesota to, come out to LA and get a job working on that and the Hellraiser sequel was really a dream come true. And the people that, I worked with were, one thing I quickly realized was, I came out here with these big wide eyes of, being, working on these, on films, and everyone that was around me didn't really seem to have a love for cinema. Whether it's the grips or the, production coordinator, whatever, you'd try to talk about movies and engage them, and they really hadn't. So it was kind of like, it seemed very strange for someone coming out to work in the industry, and you're surrounded by people who don't really seem to give a shit about movies.
Yeah.
And so right then it was kind of a wake up of, a lot of people are out here and they're making a living, and that's it. They're making a living and climbing the ladder, and then maybe one day they'll be a producer or whatever, but they're really in it for the finances. And it kind of was, eye-opening and, kind of disheartening, really, because you try to, you think everyone around you is as in love with cinema as you are, and that didn't turn out to be the case. And at the same time, it was, an enjoyable experience to be on, one of these sequels to, a great classic, but at the same time, and it was also, a bit disheartening. So
yeah,
it was kind of just one of those things where you, the reality of life sets in, and it's not all, roses and sunshine.
yeah. Now, you talk about commitment to filmmaking. I mean, I can't think of any greater commitment than mortgaging your house just to make, your film, and selling your car and whatever it takes to
Sure.
get that movie finished. let's talk about your second film from 2003, The Ghouls, which is,
Sure.
an exponential, evolution in your filmmaking. It's such a dark, serious, really conceptually brilliant film with
Thank you.
with a really kind of cinematic quality to it, completely 180 degrees from Unspeakable. What happened
Right.
in that 3 year period? What suddenly kicked in for you?
Well, it was very dismal time, really, because after Unspeakable was sold, and a year went by and still no money, and then another year and still no money, and it basically there was going to be no money. I realized that, and it was also the point where I was so kind of let down in myself with I thought the film, it wasn't me. The end result of Unspeakable wasn't really what I had envisioned. It was basically kind of cobbled together because we ran out of money, and half the crew quit after the third day because it was just a nightmare shoot, and which is all my fault. And I've realized the director is the captain of the ship, and I had basically, the ship was too big for me at the time, and I wasn't really able to control it, and it kind of went out of control. And the fact that I was able to finish anything that's coherent is the one positive thing about it. But at that time, I was just really let down in myself and the film. So The Ghouls was basically my last ditch effort to give it a go before I hung myself out of disappointment. So I had a 68.5 Mustang that I had restored since I was 16 years old, and it was sitting in my parents' garage. And I basically said, it's the last thing I have that's of any value. I sold it, took the money, and started writing the script for The Ghouls, which was basically a Faustian tale of myself. And instead of a guy who's just in love with cinema and wants to make movies for the rest of his life, it was basically this news stringer who his big movie is finding something that's so horrific that the news will basically buy it, and he'll be set for life, and he'll be touted as a great camera kind of around myself, as they say, write what you know. And I basically went in to write a script that basically kind of mirrors myself and my dream, and give it my blood, sweat, and tears, and try to make something that I could be really proud of. And it actually turned out to be something that meant a lot to me, and got some praise, and played some festivals, and got a good distribution deal, and I made a few bucks on it. And it was the thing that said, okay, I can do this. There's tons of shitty movies out there, and you wonder, how do these people keep making them? So I thought, I can try to make the best movie possible, and if it succeeds or if it fails, and luckily it succeeded for me, and I was able to make another movie, which was Easter Bunny Kill Kill. So,
And
it kept me going, I guess.
we should really talk about Tim Muscatel, because
Sure.
he's the guy who's been kind of like your Jimmy Stewart over the last four films, and he's a screen phenomenon, such a poorly disguised sociopath. With some of the best screen villain lines in recent memory.